This review is of the effects of response-contingent stimulus pairing on vocalizations of nonverbal children with autism. This article comes from the Fall 2017 Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis. Research on stimulus-stimulus pairing to induce novel vocalizations in nonverbal children has typically employed response-independent pairing, RIP, procedures to condition speech sounds as reinforcers. The purpose of the present study was to evaluate the effects of response-contingent pairing, RCP, procedure on the vocalizations of 3 nonverbal boys diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. During RCP, adult-delivered sounds that were either paired with a preferred item, target sounds, or not, non-target sounds, were presented contingent on a button press response. In Experiment 1, RCP was compared with an RIP procedure, in which the timing of sound presentations was yoked to the preceding RCP session. RCP produced a greater effect on all participants' target vocalizations than RIP. Experiment 2 demonstrated the effects of differential reinforcement of the vocalizations induced in Experiment 1. The results suggest that RCP may develop vocalizations more reliably than RIP procedures. This study had 3 participants, all with a diagnosis of autism. Participants ranged in age from 4 to 6 years old. All received a profile of level 2 or less on the Behavioral Language Assessment. Parental report for participants also showed a lack of echoic skills. Use of stimulus-stimulus pairing procedures have been used to increase vocalizations of learners with autism. Stimulus-stimulus pairing involves repeated, temporally contiguous presentation of a vocally presented speech sound with a preferred stimulus. For example, if the target sound is ma, the instructor will present ma, 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 and then present the learner with a preferred stimulus, such as an edible or a tangible item such as a toy. Some studies have demonstrated effect of stimulus-stimulus pairing on vocalizations, while others have reported mixed outcomes or null effects. In the first experiment of this study, compared RCP, response-contingent pairing, and RIP, response-independent pairing. During the response-contingent pairing condition, a button press was used as the contingent target response. Once the participants pressed the button, the experimenter vocally presented the target or non-target syllable 3 times. When the target syllable was presented, a preferred item was delivered with the 3rd presentation of the sound. With non-target syllables, no items were delivered after the sounds. During response-independent pairing, this condition was identical to the response-contingent pairing condition. The only difference was that there was no button present, and at the start of each trial, the experimenter delivered an observing prompt. So something like saying, "Look," or "Look at me," and then waited for the participant to make eye contact, then delivered either the target sounds or the non-target sounds. During this response-independent pairing condition, the length of the intertrial interval was yoked to a previous response-contingent pairing session. This was done to ensure that participants weren't receiving access to reinforcement more frequently in the response-independent pairing condition than in the response-contingent pairing condition. During the study, the participants came in contact with 4 different sounds. 2 different sounds in the RIP condition, 1 as a target sound and 1 as a non-target sound. So the target sounds were followed by a preferred stimulus, and the non-target sounds were not followed by a preferred stimulus. They also were presented with 2 different auditory sounds during the RCP condition. Again, target sounds were followed by a preferred item. Non-target sounds were not followed by the presentation of any items. For the first participant, Lee, both RCP and RIP produced an effect on target over non-target vocalizations in the first phase. However, rates of RCP target vocalizations were higher than rates of RIP target vocalizations. For Ken and Gabe, RCP produced an effect on target over non-target vocalizations, but not RIP. In the second phase, the effect of RCP was replicated by intervening on the RIP target sounds using RCP. For all participants, RCP produced an immediate increase in the target vocalizations previously assigned to RIP. Non-target control vocalizations remained low in this phase across participants. The second experiment in the study compared response-contingent pairing and differential reinforcement. So response-contingent pairing was the condition in the previous experiment that produced the greatest effects for all participants. In the RCP condition, which was done as baseline in experiment 2, the procedures were identical to the RCP sessions in experiment 1. And this was the button was presented for the button press, then auditory sounds were presented, there were target sounds, they were followed by a preferred stimulus, non-target sounds were not followed by a preferred stimulus. In the next condition of experiment 2 was differential reinforcement. RCP was conducted as in baseline with the following exceptions. All target vocalizations resulted in the immediate delivery of the preferred item and simultaneous removal of the response button. The experimenter represented the response button only after a 10-second interval passed without a target vocalization. If a target vocalization was emitted during the consumption period, that period was extended, allowing prolonged contact with their preferred stimulus or an additional bite of edible. So to describe this a little bit further, during the differential reinforcement condition, if the participant engaged in target vocalizations, they immediately received access to their preferred item. If they had their preferred item or were consuming an edible and engaged in the target vocalizations, they were given extended time with their item or an additional bite of food. Lee's rate of target vocalizations during differential reinforcement increased from baseline. Non-target vocalizations were absent or occurred at lower rates than target vocalizations and did not increase from baseline to differential reinforcement. Ken's rate of target vocalizations during differential reinforcement increased. Non-target vocalizations were absent or occurred at lower rates than target vocalizations and did not increase from baseline during differential reinforcement. For Gabe, rates of target vocalizations during the differential reinforcement of target and approximations condition exceeded his RCP baseline pairing rates for target vocalizations. Across differential reinforcement conditions, non-target vocalizations were absent or occurred at lower rates than target vocalizations and did not increase from baseline to differential reinforcement. The response-contingent pairing condition consistently produced greater increases in the target vocalizations emitted by all participants compared to the response-independent pairings. For all 3 participants, target vocalizations induced through RCP were maintained during experiment 2, and those vocalizations were further increased through differential reinforcement. Additionally, the number of maintenance pairings was reduced for all participants during differential reinforcement. Based on the results of this study, RCP may be a procedure that can be used with certain learners to increase novel vocalizations. Additionally, it is important to use differential reinforcement procedures to shape up novel vocalizations to be used as commands and requests for different items and activities so that those novel vocalizations can become functional and part of these learners' vocal repertoires. For more information about this article, you can find it in the Fall 2017 Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis.